Sara, okay, so you and Yvonne, you attended a Kathryn Kuhlman event years ago, and I know something really incredible happened there. I mean, you were healed. Can you share what that experience was like? And would you say that that is the moment that sparked your walk into the supernatural?
Absolutely, it was, Jen. I'm happy to tell that story because it absolutely changed my life. I was told that I had cancer and would only live about 3 months at the most because it was riddled throughout my body. And I had never been to a healing service. I was a Presbyterian Sunday school teacher, and Presbyterians did not have healing services. And so I always thought it was kind of like a holy roller type thing.
Yeah,
So
of course.
when Kathryn, it was in the hospital when I was told about the cancer that I saw on my television, Kathryn Kuhlman, who pointed right at me on the television. I believe in God
Yeah.
because I believe in miracles. That's the way she talked. And she said, "You be at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles this Sunday for God's healing." Well, I knew I had to be there. I didn't care what it was. I knew that I had to be there. I was not supposed to get out of the hospital as soon as her service, which was that Sunday, and I was not supposed to get out of the hospital until probably the next Wednesday. So I did some tall talking to the doctor about how I promised I would not move, crossing my finger, and if he would let me out soon, that I had all these people to administer to my needs, blah, blah, blah. He said, "Well, you'll bleed to death if you walk." So he
Wow.
said, "You have to promise you won't." But I knew I had to be there. I called the Shrine Auditorium and said, "Do you have a special place that people with that are very seriously ill can go in? Because I see she has these crowds that gather even the night before, and I cannot sustain that."
Yes.
And they said yes, and they put my name down on a specific door I was to go in. So the car that dropped me off left me there and going to join me for the service. And it was a friend named Jan, and I said, "Jan, we can't get in. I've just knocked on the door," and they said that every seat was taken, and the fire department would not let one more person in. Well, I was there right at the time they told me. It was an hour before the service began, but it was filled. So bang went the door. And I remember very well the feeling I had, like all the hope that I had driven by that one advertisement of Kathryn was gone. And Jan said, "Oh, we have to leave." And at that moment, somebody came up to me and said, "Sara, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I don't feel well, but I can't get in." She said, "Well, I came out to get my sweater. It's kind of cool in there. I want you to take my seat, and your
Oh,
friend can take my husband's seat." Well, I would usually be kind enough to say, "Oh, no, no, no." But I said, "Oh, that would be wonderful." However, she was seated in the balcony on the last balcony. There were huge steps to climb. They did not have an elevator at that time at the Shrine Auditorium. So as I was walking up the steps, I was walking in my own blood. I could
oh my
see
goodness.
my footprint.
Oh my goodness.
So by the time I reached my row, and fortunately her seat was on the end of the row, I literally plopped down. I had no energy left. As I did, my body floated up to the right of the ceiling at the Shrine Auditorium in a pink cloud. So I was looking at my body, but I was up on the ceiling
Like
in
your
this
spirit.
pink. Well, yes, obviously, but that's where I could see my body, but I seemed to be up there. And so I did not know what was happening. I don't know the length of time, but I did hear Kathryn Kuhlman say, there is a magnificent healing that God is healing this person, and her body was riddled with cancer. At that moment, my spirit came back into my body, and as it did, I was shaking all over from the power of the Holy Spirit, knocked down the row like dominoes.
Wow.
And then Kathryn came back to me and said, the girl will know it because there's 1,000 needles going through her body, she feels. That's exactly what I was feeling. And then she came back. I was saying to God, am I being the one healed? Duh. I just had never been there. And so then she said, the woman that's being healed uh, is sitting on the last balcony of the first row in a red dress. And I had red, white, and blue dress, but mainly red. So obviously I was the one being healed. And so the ushers came up and kneeled around me and said, please go down and give your testimony. Obviously you're the one being healed. Now listen to this point because it's very important. I said, I don't know about that. And as I said that, a voice came to me very clearly and said, you mean I would do this for you and you would deny me?
Wow.
And I jumped up.
Yes.
I jumped very quickly up. As I did, it was like hot oil going all down me. It wasn't, of course, but that's what it felt. I did go down the steps. I realized there was no bleeding. I realized my energy was back. And I was now at the back of the auditorium, and she was on the stage. There were quite a few healings that were happening at that moment, other healings, and they were out in the aisle. So I was in the back, and I said to God, now I'm here. You see, I'm here, but there's no way I'm going to get up to give my testimony. At that point, Kathryn came over to the end of the stage, and she pointed at me. And she said, the girl in the red dress in the very back, let her through. The Holy Spirit is all over her. So I did. I went up. I told my testimony exactly as it happened. I even told about the pink cloud and everything else. And so then Kathryn asked the usher if he would get my phone number.
Wow.
When I went home that night, my skin had healed over the clamps. They didn't have stitches back then, just clamps. And the skin had completely covered it. I was to go to the doctor that next morning, and the Feddersons, Yvonne and Don, took me before he had his other patients because he was very concerned about letting me go. When I walked in and he examined me and saw that the skin had healed up over my clamps, he came out as white as a ghost, the Fedderson said, out to the reception area and said, you have the kookiest friend I've ever seen. So her skin has healed up. So that was such a delight because it was such proof, of God's touch. But I begged him to take more tests because I said, the cancer is not there. I know it's not there. He did, and the cancer was not there.